Gettysburg Museum of History Studios. You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg's Ask a Gettysburg Guide. And today we are talking with our friend Lewis Trott about the Army of the Potomac from after the Battle of Gettysburg to the end of 1863. Lewis, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure, and I have a fun time.
I know that. And in the back, running the cameras and jumping in whenever he feels like it is our friend Mike Boriski from, of course, the great Civil War Tees. Hello, Mikey.
Hello, Matthew.
How are you?
Excited to transition cameras today.
I know, and you're very good at it. So thank you very much for your due diligence.
You're welcome, Very Little.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get on with the excitement of today's show. Lewis, the Battle of Gettysburg is won. The Confederates are back over the river into Virginia. The Union Army goes into Virginia as well. Where do they go?
They both go down the Shenandoah Valley. The Confederates go up the Shenandoah Valley. Mm-hmm. Union Army goes down the Loudoun Valley. The Union Army's not able to trap the Confederate Army in the Shenandoah Valley. The Third Corps is now under the command of Major General William French. He was in charge of the garrison at Harper's Ferry as the two armies are moving north. So he takes over because Sickles is out of the picture.
So, yeah, maybe we should start with that. So at the Battle of Gettysburg, Birney takes over for Sickles.
Yes.
Right. But Birney doesn't stay in command very long.
No.
Who else, what other command changes are there after they leave Gettysburg?
You are going to have the Second Corps is under the command of Gouverneur Warren. Because Hancock's been wounded. First Corps, of course, Reynolds gets killed, is under the command of Major General John Newton. So, and then Sykes is still Fifth Corps. Sedgwick is still Sixth. Howard and Major General Slocum are still commanders of their respective corps.
Okay.
So
11th and 12th.
Yes.
Respectively.
And so they're both coming down these valleys. Loudoun Valley is to the east of the Shenandoah Valley. It's between the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Bull Run Mountains. And it's a race to get to the gaps. If the Union Army can come south fast enough, block the gaps, and bottle Lee's army in the Shenandoah Valley, perhaps they can destroy them there. There's a fight at Manassas Gap. That is going to be the Third Corps under William French. He doesn't act as fast as he could with his troops. They're not able to stop the Confederates. They get control of that gap eventually, but there's a gap further south of that gap that the Confederates are going to flow through. They're going to come back into Virginia. They're going to head towards the area of the Rappahannock River and the Rapidan River. And those two rivers sort of form a V on its side. Mm-hmm. The apex of the V is to the east, and then the two wings come off towards the west, and the distance between them
divert.
Grows. Yes.
Yeah.
So both armies come back into Virginia. The Union Army goes to Warrenton. That's where the supply depot is at the time because they have to refit. All this talk about the Confederates needing shoes. Well, the Union Armies just walk the same distance. They need shoes, supplies, horses, equipment. And so both armies they're trying to regroup after this momentous battle that occurred here in Gettysburg. So that's what they're doing. Now, I haven't said that there's other things going on. The draft is starting to take place. Legislation was passed in March of 1863, the Conscription Act, and they're going to implement it now in July. They need replacements for all the wounded soldiers and the casualties that the Union Army incurred from this battle and the overall campaign. So, and then they have a bunch of regiments whose time's up. They're going home. You got to replace these with manpower. So we've got the draft. Of course, I think it's July 11th, the draft riots in New York start. So that's a big thing. And they go on for 4 or 5 days. So with the government has to do something about that. So everything's happening.
And some of the units from the Army of the Potomac are going to go to the draft riot,
yes,
right?
Yeah. And I'll reference that here in a second.
Oh, sorry.
So that's where the two armies are. Lee's army comes south down near Culpeper Courthouse, that area. Areas that you're familiar with because they've been here before when they started the campaign. They're down by the Rapidan River, Pronunciation is not my strong suit. I went to school in Upper Marlboro. But that's where they are. And it's sort of a lull as far as these two armies and fighting each other goes.
Okay.
So they're both trying to recover. And let me back up how I came upon this subject. After my season ended in October, I start reading on different things, not necessarily Gettysburg-centric. And that's when I expand my reading because I'm not preparing for any specific tours. And I was reading Rufus Dawes' service with the 6th Wisconsin. And there's something in there that made me think, that's got to be a blow to your morale to go north, win this battle in the land of milk and honey where supplies are abundant. Now, the Union Army's not living off the land, but it's clearly not a desolate land like you've previously been on.
If you had to, there'd be something there.
Yes. Yeah. And in the case of some of these men, they're hours from home.
Yeah.
You know, not days. They are hours from their home.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's got to suck to go back to desolate where they go to Virginia. They don't stay in the valley or anything.
Right.
They're back down there by these rivers.
Yep.
And there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Homes have been burnt. Trees have been chopped down. It's, been fought over numerous times. So that's when I started thinking, I wonder what they're thinking. Because I know what I'd be thinking. This sucks. So that's what got me started on this. And I started looking into it. And the more I looked into it, and I knew some of the broad parameters, what goes on, Bristoe Station Campaign Mine Run, and then nothing. It's not Gettysburg, but it's this time between September and December. That's when Lincoln knows he needs Grant. And Grant's not going to take over the Army of the Potomac, but Grant is a step up from Halleck, and Grant is going to push this army forward, unlike Meade. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not from what happened. Lincoln's disappointed. What happens?
This isn't retribution.
No, but in my opinion, this is all my opinion. It's from what takes place at some point in September and December. That's when I think Lincoln says, we need somebody here who's going to fight this army.
Right.
We're dilly-dallying enough.
But really, I mean, would you say that him putting Grant in that position, because he's putting him in Halleck's position?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
So it's really a commentary on Halleck.
It is, yes. But the interaction between Meade, Halleck, and Lincoln at times is, do you want me to do this? No, I'm not telling you to do this. I want you to do something. What if I do this? No, don't do that.
Right.
What are we going to do? What should I do? Means you're doing nothing.
Right.
Grant says, we're going to do this. Let's go.
Yeah. Okay.
And, I'm not a big Grant enthusiast. It is what it is. But he's a fighter. Meade is a very deliberate fighter, and he has to have things right. It's interesting if you go back and read Meade's letters to his wife after Antietam and after Chancellorsville. He accuses the heads of the Army, McClellan and Hooker, of not having enough nerve, not moving with alacrity. I never heard of that word before I started studying. And I had no idea that it was a word, but you see alacrity all over the time.
They loved that word back then.
Neither one of those commanders, in Meade's mind, showed that. And then he becomes commander. What does he do? Mm-hmm. Well, he fights that defensive. He shows alacrity, taking charge and moving north to engage Lee somewhere, but that's on northern soil. When he comes back south, though, he lacks alacrity, in my opinion. And it's just a bunch of, what should I do? If you don't want me to do this, what do you want me to do? And I'm reading some stuff and it's like, my God, move them and attack. That's what you do. Attack. It's frustrating. 161 years later.
Right.
It's just frustrating. Why do you got to ask all the time? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just how things were back then, but I have a feeling, and it's shown, Grant doesn't say, Grant doesn't say, well, they pushed us back out of the wilderness. He says, we're going to stay here and fight it out if it takes all summer. He doesn't give Washington a chance to say, no, you can't do that. We can't supply. He says, this is what we're going to do.
Right.
Of course, that's music to Lincoln's ears.
That's what Lincoln wanted.
Because Lincoln knows the math.
Right.
At one point he says, we got X amount of men, they got X amount of men. We might lose the same amount of men, but simple math tells us they're going to be with, they can't afford to lose the same as we can.
We've got more weight.
Sad for the soldiers fighting. So again, between that time between September and December, the events that transpire, I think that's what brings Lincoln to bring Grant east, replace Halleck, because Halleck is a diddler. It's Old Brains. Why is he named Old Brain?
I mean, a dawdler?
Yeah, diddler, dawdler, whatever. Upper Marlboro again. But he's Old Brains because he wrote some military treatise that'll put you to sleep in 5 minutes way back when.
Right.
And so he's labeled a genius because of that. But when he comes to Washington, his desk is in Washington. That's where he primarily stays. He's trying to direct things from there. Lincoln needs a man of action. Grant's the guy.
Do you think that Meade, having lost Hancock and Reynolds, two very strong leaders, might have made him a little more cautious in everything after Gettysburg?
It could have.
In the immediate months, I mean.
Yeah, and then you have the performance of French at Manassas Gap. It wasn't that great.
Right.
You've got Newton in charge of the First Corps, diminished First Corps because of the casualty they take at Gettysburg, and who knows how he's going to be able to, proceed with things in command and stuff. So, yeah, that could be very well part of his problem. But you work with what you got.
So do you think... well, okay, keep going. I'll ask that later.
So they move back. But let me read this. This is from the OR. This is from Halleck to Meade on July 29th, 1863. But the message is actually from the president. And it says, Major General Meade is at Warrenton again. The following note of the president is communicated for your instructions. I will write you more fully today. Major General Halleck, seeing General Meade's dispatch of yesterday to yourself causes me to fear that he supposes the government here is demanding of him to bring on a general engagement with Lee as soon as possible. I am claiming no such thing of him. In fact, my judgment is against it, which judgment, of course, I will yield if yours and his are to the contrary. If he could not safely engage Lee at Williamsport, it seems absurd to suppose he can safely engage him now when he is scarcely more than 2/3 of the force he had at Williamsport, while it must be that Lee has been reinforced. So they're going back and forth. What should he do? And you mentioned them sending troops away to New York. That order is July 30th, comes from Halleck to Meade. He's still at Warrenton. The troops to be sent east to New York should number from 1,500 to 2,000. This detachment is all that is proposed at present to take from your army, but under no circumstances can we now give you any reinforcements. Every place has been stripped to the bare poles. Keep up a threatening attitude, but do not advance.
So,
what is that?
So we're going to you just lost 20-something thousand men in the Battle of Gettysburg. Yeah. We're going to take another 2,000 from you to go put down these
initially.
riots.
Then they're going to take more a little bit later on.
Okay. So, and we can't reinforce you, but you still have to look fierce like you're about to do something.
But don't do anything.
Right.
I mean,
you got to keep up the scare, if you will.
And if you go in and read, there's this back and forth. Do you want me to attack? No, we don't want you to attack, but we want you to do this. Well, you give me more men because Lee's got 80,000 men. Mm-hmm. He's as bad as the other commanders who, they get haunted by some mysterious ghost figure of 80,000 men that Lee has. He doesn't have anything,
right.
And it's interesting, too, I didn't print it out in the ORs. They specifically tell Meade, don't send any troops from New York or Pennsylvania to New York. And so they send the 5th Wisconsin, the 20th Indiana, and there's 2 other regiments that slip my mind. But it's basically a brigade. But you can't send any from New York or Pennsylvania.
Well, that makes sense.
Because they're close.
Yeah.
But he sends those up. And so that's what's going on. The other thing is the draft is, in effect, put down the riots. They're drafting people. But there's also part of that, the substitution thing, where the richer people can pay money, pay somebody $300 to go in their place. They're a substitute soldier. So this is a way for some to make money. Get some money, never really show up, change your name, go get some more money, keep doing the same thing.
Good old days, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have a driver's license, nothing to prove who you were.
Yeah. So, and then again, we had a number of 9-month regiments here at Gettysburg. Their service is up. So shortly after they come back south into Virginia, their term of service is expired.
Right, because some of them,
they're going home.
some of them should have ended right as the battle was starting.
Yeah.
And they stayed.
Yes.
So really, they're overtime now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it was the 17th Connecticut. Maybe they had 2 weeks left when the battle occurs. They have 75 men.
Sounds familiar.
I think the 151st Pennsylvania too is.
Yeah, they're one.
Yeah.
There's another one, but their time is up. So they're going home. So this comes from, along that vein, this comes from service with 6 Wisconsin with Rufus Dawes. He's writing from Beverly Ford at the Rappahannock River, August 1st. He nears there today. It's very hot, and men were sunstruck in the column. That's another common theme, how hot it was when they come back down in Virginia and they're marching. There is artillery firing and musketry this evening near Brandy Station, I think. The 167th Pennsylvania. They were not part of the Gettysburg battle, but they're part of the Army of the Potomac, a 9-month regiment. A regiment of men who were drafted for 9 months' service and who claimed their time had expired refused to march this morning. They are attached to our brigade, and there are about 800 men in their ranks. The 2nd, 6th, and 7th Wisconsin were drawn up in front of them with loaded muskets, and the commands ready aim were given by General Cutler before they would fall in. Upon the incentive, however, they fell in with great alacrity. How about that?
More alacrity.
Yeah. General Cutler himself gave these commands, and I should have felt badly all my life to have had him order fire. But by showing the men he would order it, the necessity was obviated. I was directed to march my regiment behind the 167th PA and had orders to shoot any man who fell out of the ranks, which I did not do, but I kept a company deployed behind them who drove them up when they lagged. So you've got these men. It's the scene in Gettysburg on a larger scale when the group of Maine soldiers say,
Mutineers.
our time's up.
Yeah.
And they're threatened to be shot and all this stuff. And they eventually join up with the 20th Maine. So it's the same stuff going on. Let's see.
What's that line Captain Brewer has, Mike? You want to shoot him? You go right ahead.
Oh yeah.
Ain't nobody gonna say nothing. Is that? Or am I mixing a couple of different
No,
characters?
that's exactly it.
That's it, right? Yeah.
This is sort of what's going on with the Army. And these are from the Life and Letters of Emory Upton. And this is dated August 6th. It's New Baltimore, Virginia.
That's where my family lives.
New Baltimore?
Yeah.
As opposed to Old Baltimore.
Yeah, we say Warrenton because that's the next nearest or the nearest
okay.
big town, but I think that's also their they have a New Baltimore post office.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
He writes from New Baltimore, August 6th, 1863. My dear sister, I have seldom seen even Virginia so hot a day as this. The heat penetrates everywhere, and in the shade one tosses about in vain to seek comfort. Once in a while, a cool curtain of air passes over us, but rarely. It is much healthier on account of its elevation. I think he's talking about when he's in the valley. We are about 20 miles from the Blue Ridge and exactly at the southern terminus of Bull Run or Pignut Mountains. We call them the Bull Run Mountains. The rest of the division is at Warrenton. Both armies seem to have taken the defensive positions and are gathering themselves for the storm that will burst upon them probably in November. I think it decidedly good policy on our part to wait. Our armies at all points should be reinforced so as to far outnumber the enemy. In the next struggle, there ought not to be a possibility of defeat. We have got men enough, and we only have to bring them about. So, other than the heat, Upton is for, and he's in charge of, at this point, the 121st New York Infantry Regiment. He, in his view, let's refit, get enough men back into this army to fill the ranks so the outcome is never in doubt. Mm-hmm. We just need the leadership to bring that about. So
It rhymed.
Did I? Yeah, I'm pretty good. Let's see. Let's go here. This is August 21st. This is from the history of the 106th Pennsylvania Regiment. On the 20th, and this is August 21st. On the 21st, the whole division was drawn up in line to witness the execution of a member of the 71st Regiment, who was sentenced to be shot for desertion. And on the 28th, 2 others belonging to other regiments of the division were also shot for the same offense. Clearly, Lincoln didn't see these names come across his desk and pardon him.
Right.
Yet some might well be justified in being absent without leave, if not while in action, as for over 70 days had we been marching day after day with hardly any rest, on short rations, scarcely any clothes, some in our brigade actually marching in their undershirt and drawers, many barefoot or without any apology for a shoe, tramping, as has been said, over 450 miles in mud and rain, heat and dust, night and day. And here we are back again within a short distance from where we started in June. We had fought the greatest battle that was fought throughout the whole world war, severely punished the enemy, and gained a glorious victory at a terrible sacrifice. Yet we are no nearer their capital. They resisted and prevented our advance as they did here at last. Again, we're back in the same hellhole we left, and we should have ended this by now.
Yeah.
So
that's got to be disappointing, like you said before. Like, you just won this big victory on your own turf. There was green grass beneath your feet, you know.
Yeah, and you're close to home.
It didn't look like the moon. It looked like normal green earth. And then you go back to this hellscape that you just left and have been slogging it out for 2 years. It's gotta be a little demoralizing, right? And,
yeah.
And you, like, the defeat that you delivered wasn't defeat enough almost.
Yeah.
You're right. You know
what do we got to do to end this thing?
Right. Like, seriously, after that whooping we just gave you? Like,
yeah.
you're still...
And then, they're talking about the clothing they don't have and the shoes. Again, they're out of shoes too. Apparently it's the hottest summer ever down in Virginia. They had an issue with global warming back then. Apparently it hadn't stopped.
So what was it? Was it hotter than what they left up here? I mean, we're not that far from Virginia, from that area. That's like an hour and 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
Driving.
You know, sometimes in the early summer, you get heat, but it's not crazy heat.
Right.
As the summer goes on into August.
Yeah.
It's
that humidity.
Yeah.
Just holds it there.
Yes. Especially, they're not wearing the modern day lightweight
right.
clothing.
Yeah.
So I believe at that point of the year, it is hotter and more humid.
I'd imagine that the trick that Virginia plays on the mind when you go and visit it today, that area that we're talking about, is it's lush. There's trees, there's grass.
Yeah.
It wasn't there then. If you look at pictures from these areas we're talking about at the time, it's just nothing. It's desolate. Like, all the trees have been cut down for various purposes.
Buildings burned and tore down.
Yeah. I mean, and so there's no relief from the sun.
No.
I would imagine, I'm no earth scientist, but I imagine that, grass has some cooling effect in trees besides the shade that the trees offer. I don't know. Maybe somebody could correct me on that one there, but I just feel like it just had to be hell.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I always go back to this, and I hate to do it, but the what do you call it? The droppings of an army.
Oh yeah.
The animals, the people, just the stench of the whole place.
Yeah.
It just had to be miserable.
Yeah. Especially when you stop. And then it accumulates because you're sitting still.
Yeah.
And until the army moves, you can't escape it.
No.
So
it's gross.
This is from the History of the 14th Kinetic, published in 1906 by Charles Page. And this talks about the conscripts that they're getting, substitutes, draftees, what have you.
Right.
He's writing this from Cedar Run, or this is from Cedar Run. Here they remained until August 18th, and these days were filled with varied experiences. While military duties were not so strenuous, there were many trying situations as well as pleasant ones. We'll skip the pleasant one. We're trying to make them seem like miserable.
We want them. We want to pity them.
And he's talking about these substitutes coming in. While experience proved that many of these men, who were for the most part conscripts and substitutes, did very valiant service and were an honor to the brave old regiment, a large percentage were not only conscripts but nondescripts. Perhaps no occurrence brought this to mind of the original men of the regiment, now reduced to about 80, the great loss they had sustained to battle and disease since their departure from Connecticut, as did the advent of these new recruits. The character of this addition, mostly foreigners from New York City, left little in common between the men. These new men had scant sympathy with the cause for which they were fighting. They lacked the bond of state pride and the tie of companionship, not only by kinship in many instances, comrades, schoolmates of old, but by the experiences of the days and weeks since they entered service. And, you know, I went to basic training 40 years ago. I was in basic training.
Wow, good for you.
That only means I was old.
I was 6.
I got to my first duty station in March of 1985. So, yeah, and that was Fort Carson. That's when 4th ID was at Fort Carson before they moved to Fort Hood.
Let's see, I was 6. Mike, how old were you? 2?
8, yeah, 2 going on 3.
40 years ago. Wow. We were little kids.
I felt like a little kid at times, so. Little kid that could drink. Yeah. Actually, I couldn't. I was 20.
Couldn't. You were,
I was 20.
Yeah.
I tried, though. You go through something like basic training, and they do a form of that, their training before they ever leave the state, and they're mustered into service. You go through that, and then this group of men goes through these trials and tribulations. You lose your friends, your comrades, your neighbors from back home. And then you settle down at this point after Gettysburg. You're down in Virginia, this hellhole. And then these new people come along. And there's no sense of esprit de corps.
Right.
They're just replacements.
Yeah.
It's hard to build back that bond that you left whatever little town up north that you left. And that deteriorates the esprit de corps of a unit, excuse me. And it's just, I don't know how you put it back together until you go through another traumatic experience.
Where now you're all in the same boat.
You're all, yeah.
That's well demonstrated, I think, in Band of Brothers when they get there's episodes called Replacements. And they get these new guys in, and the old guys are like, "Who the hell are you, punk?" Yeah, Mike?
I was going to say, and this is a relatively new challenge for the Army of the Potomac, right? Now, the Confederates historically are filling in the same units with new ones coming in, but usually the Army of the Potomac or the Union armies just let those enlistments and units die out, and they'll form new regiments, you know, with guys that are re-enlisting. But this is one of those first times with this big influx of people, they're placing them in existing regiment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because I always thought that they just made a new regiment. So, but this is what they did before that, and they decided it's not a good idea.
They're filling up the ranks.
The opposite, Matt.
Yeah, they're filling up existing ranks.
I said initially they would just let the regiments die out. I'm saying this is one of the first times they're filling in with these recruits to keep the older regiments around.
Gotcha.
And I'll have more examples of the problems with the conscripts. There's also other problems. This is from the same history of the 14th. There was much annoyance in camp of the regiment from thieving. Not everybody's honest. John Hurst, writing about this time, says, "The day the 2 bounty jumpers were shot, I had my knapsack stolen, and with it my new cap, shirt, stockings, handkerchiefs, and worst of all, my diary. Some of these fellows would steal the last cent you had if they could get a chance at it. This is the guy, whoever's doing the thieving, is serving next to you."
Yeah.
Again, it's another morale breaker.
Yeah.
It weakens the esprit de corps of the unit. Going backwards a little bit, Tuesday, August 18th, 14th Connecticut still. The outposts were all called in, and a line of march was taken up to the rear, a godly procession as far as the length was concerned, but only 80 of the old members of the regiment. They joined the brigade at a stone church near Bristoe Station and marched to Elk Run, about 5 miles distance, where they encamped. The same day, another squad of 134 men arrived from Connecticut. This was what remained of a total of over 200, the remainder having deserted en route, some jumping from the car windows while the train was in rapid motion, and others deserting at stations along the journey. Most of these men went under assumed names. Very many, not remembering the names under which they enlisted at roll call, were obliged to look under their caps where their names were written on pieces of paper. The presence of a large class of men of this character made it doubly difficult for the old and trusted men in the regiment. A constant watch had to be kept that it did not desert, and a very few of them could be trusted to do picket duty. Again,
That's got
erosion.
Right. Because now you can't even trust these new guys that they're even going to stay.
Yeah.
Jerks.
Let's see here. I'm trying not to belabor the point too much. I get some. I always get more than that.
Give us one more.
Let's see what this is about. This is from the diary of Josiah Marshall Faville, Favill. He's the adjutant of the 57th New York. He's
a nice
writing
Chianti and some Faville beans.
This is why I like coming on here. I always laugh. It's good to laugh. This is August 15th, 1863. So hot today that none but necessary duties have been ordered. Palm leaf fans were in demand, and most of the day we lay upon our beds under the awnings in a very primitive attire, naked, making industrious use of them. There is little of military interest to note. Lee is apparently resting from his labors, and we are doing the same, besides trying to do something to fill up our old regiments. Several of them have been ordered home to see if their renown will not be an inducement for men to join them. And that's the point. They will send some of these men from these veteran regiments back home to their hometown. Frequently, they'll send the commander of one of these regiments, and they're on recruiting duty. Come join this, this thing that's won these laurels at these various battlefields. Wouldn't you like to be part of this in the future?
Right.
Come on.
Right.
Cross's, and this is Cross from Gettysburg, Cross's old regiment, the 5th New Hampshire, is amongst them. Volunteers are not to be had now in any number, and these big bounty men and substitutes are not worth having, as they very generally desert the first chance they get. It is too bad the enthusiasm should have waned so seriously. Our armies in the last 2 months have won great victories. Gettysburg with nearly 20,000 lost to the enemy. Vicksburg said to be 30,000 and 200 guns. Port Houston, a couple thousand men beside minor affairs, aggregating a tremendous reduction in the enemy's force and immense loss of territory. If we could just get enough men to bring the old regiments up to their original strength, the war would soon be at an end. And, again, it's good to have your regiments back up to strength, but what kind of leadership are you going to get in direction? Because if you don't get the proper leadership, it doesn't matter how many men you have.
So it sounds like, though they had this great victory, they are in some serious need, as Six Questions says here in the chat, of some reorganization and refitting.
They are.
And maybe a little soul searching.
Yes. This is from, if you've never read The Life and Letters of Alexander Hayes, that's good reading.
Okay.
Of course, he's going to die in 1864, but he's here, beating back Pickett's charge, dragging the guidons through the dirt afterwards.
Right.
Gettysburg. He's writing to his father-in-law, John B. McFadden, on August 10th. He's at Elktown, Virginia. Dear sir, we have had no fighting for some time, 2 months perhaps, to come. We are receiving conscripts. 50 arrived out of 117 started, and today we are required to send for 160 more. Now is the day and hour to strike the fatal blow. We have not, at least I have, but little confidence in our commander. The science of war has been played out, and we want a man who, under the guidance of common sense, will give us hard knocks, for we can beat them at that if we cannot at strategy. Love to all. Sincerely, Alex. So he's starting to intimate, the first disappointing thoughts about Meade. We're getting all these men. They're not up to quality. Only half of them show up because half of them jump off the train when it stops, apparently. But let's get as many as we can, and let's go at them.
I mean, so we're getting these bodies. They've received rudimentary training before they were sent to the Army, right?
I assume so.
You would hope so.
Yes.
I mean, rudimentary, like not thorough, but
this is August 10th. They're not getting much because the draft's in July. July 11th.
So these are all draftees. These aren't any volunteers?
No.
Okay.
These are conscripts, substitutes, all from
Okay, so they can't have much, which kind of bolsters the point I'm trying to get at is what do they do to assimilate them into the Army better?
When they get to the unit, you're going to have that daily drill with them.
Okay.
And you've got X amount of soldiers who are veterans instead of one guy in the beginning of the war, one guy with some rudimentary military experience trying to teach a bunch of amateurs. Now you've got a core group of men who can train a bigger group more efficiently, I think, in a faster manner too.
So that's what they're there's the normal resentment. I don't know if that's the word, towards replacements that the veterans would have, but the smart veterans would put that aside, and when training is going on, they'd be showing them with a little bit of, there's training by the manual and there's training by experience.
Yep,
right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they're imparting their wisdom on them. I'm hoping.
You would hope so. Yeah, you'd hope so.
Right.
At some point, you got to get over the resentment. Yeah.
Right.
They weren't with you in the beginning, but they're here now, and you need them if you ever want to go home again.
And in the beginning, you were just as green.
Yeah. And then you hope, they're thinking, I'll train him better than I was trained, and maybe more of us will live.
Yeah. Well, now you've been in the service. You were over in Desert Storm, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that wasn't a very long operation, so you probably didn't get replacements.
We shot them, but we shot the mess out of some stuff. It was a field artillery dream.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You were in the artillery, for the people who don't know.
It was better than sex, man. I gotta tell you.
But you can't even see it, what you're doing,
We saw it later on because we'd ride by it.
You'd go by it.
See blowed up building, busted up tanks, dead Iraqis.
And you'd be like, look what we did.
Yeah, they would tell us the fire directional center is the one that gives you the data.
Right.
Point your tubes this way and shoot. Yeah, 45 minutes ago, this is what y'all hit as we're going by.
Oh, okay.
So, no, we didn't. But when I went to Iraq in 2008, I did a year.
Oh, that's right. You went back.
Yeah. We did get replacements. And it's nowhere, I'm sure, it's nowhere near as tense as what these men in 1863 were experiencing. But and I was one of them. I showed up, and I showed up with 6 other guys. We were outsiders, and it was clear that we were outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
A couple weeks later, we're more acclimated and we're involved in things. And then, a couple months later, other people rotate out and more people come in.
And now you're the veteran.
Yeah. They're the outsiders. And you just look at them and you don't want to be bothered because you wore out,
Yeah.
But you got to bother. You got to be bothered because you got to get them up to speed so you don't die.
Human nature is very weird.
We're very clannish and cliquish.
We are.
Yeah.
But eventually that wears off the more we're exposed to the new thing, right?
When common sense prevails, common sense tells you they're not the enemy.
Right.
And it's not their fault that they're just now getting here.
It's also just exhausting hating someone.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just easier to go, well, okay, whatever.
I will say this, too. It's exhausting trying to train somebody up.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh, I got to at some points while I'm over there, I hated it.
Well, but
it's my job.
But that's kind of what I was getting at before, where you're trying to give your experience, right? But you weren't taught you experienced the things that made you wise. You weren't taught those things.
We were taught by the book. They were taught by the book in the beginning.
Right.
This is what the manual says.
Yeah.
It's the Army today.
Yeah.
The whole train how you fight is bullshit.
Well, sure, because then there's the reality of what happens.
When contact's made, the plan goes out the window.
Exactly.
But you're trained by the book. That's all we got. But now you go through a bunch of battles. This is what they're liable to do. And this is how we're going to prevent that and defeat them.
Back to Band of Brothers, when they're with those replacements and they're going to jump into Holland and they're getting ready to go. And Sergeant Randleman goes over to the one recruit who's got everything that he had in training. And he's like, you don't need this. You don't need that. Yeah. He's just throwing stuff. And he's like, all right, let's go.
And they talk about men in 1863 like that.
Yeah.
Everything they own. And let's see how far you walk with that.
Right.
So
and
but
that's
you don't know any better.
But you don't know any better. And I would imagine it's frustrating if you're someone who actually does want to teach the new guy, right? Probably for your own benefit, not even theirs, right? You're not like, I don't want to see this kid get killed. You're just like, I don't want this kid to get me killed.
Exactly.
So you're going to teach him things that he needs to know. And it must be frustrating, I'm imagining, to try to teach him everything you know, because you can't remember everything you know in 1 second or a couple of minutes or whatever. So you realize like it's going to have to come out as something that you're experiencing together comes up and you go, no, you don't want to do that. Or you know what I mean? So it's got to be frustrating to have to deal with. And just, I know I would be frustrated. I would just be like, why don't you know this already?
And
why can't you figure it out?
The other important thing that's really not talked about, you have to have a receptive audience.
Yes.
Because even back then, ego's not new.
No.
It's been around forever. Sure, Jesus had a bit of an ego. He just didn't want to admit it.
Hey, he's the son of God. I would too.
Let's see you turn some stuff into wine, buddy. Yeah. But it goes, I tell everybody to listen. Rob Abbott was my mentor, and he talks to me. But, when I went through the process, he said, you listened. You took what I said. I was very receptive to anything.
Right.
You have to have a receptive mind when you're training, and pushback's not going to do you any good. It's going to frustrate the trainer, which in turn frustrates the trainee, and nothing really gets accomplished.
Right.
You're not doing the job to prepare this soldier to go fight the next battle and be successful.
Real quick. I know this is about the Army of the Potomac, and we can do one later in more detail about the Army of Northern Virginia. But at this time, is Lee going through the same thing as far as turnover due to desertions or what?
That's a good segue into what they're doing, because the same applies to Washington, D.C., the federal government. The Confederate government is worried about Tennessee. Tennessee. Rocky Mountaintop, whatever it's called. What's the song?
Rocky Top.
Rocky Top, Tennessee.
Right.
Because they're in danger. The Confederates are in danger of getting pushed out of East Tennessee. If that happens, that opens the doorway to Atlanta, cities down south, and you're behind Lee at this point. You can come up behind Lee. You're in his rear. You're quite a ways away, but it's still opening that back door. And so, Lee is dealing with the same problems of manpower, supplies, and the supply system in the South is nowhere near as efficient or as great as that in the North.
Take them from the rear.
He said Lee's rear too much.
So, they're worried about that, but they're also, again, worried about what's going on in Tennessee. And so, originally, they want Lee. There's ideas floating around to send Lee to Tennessee and take charge from Braxton Bragg. But instead, Lee convinces them, no, let me stay here. And if I have to, I'll give you some troops. We'll send Longstreet. So early September, Longstreet's corps leaves the Army of Northern Virginia and heads to Tennessee. That's a third of Lee's army is gone.
Yeah.
And who's he got? He's got Ewell and A.P. Hill.
Right.
You sent your most experienced commander away out there. Now they win the Battle of Chickamauga. I always want to say Chickamauga.
It's Chickamauga.
Chickamauga. Like I said, I can't pronounce anything to save my life, but I make a concerted effort.
There's a John Wayne movie where he says Chickamauga, and it drives me nuts. Yeah, I can't remember which one it is.
But they go out there, they get a victory. Eventually, they are going to put Chattanooga under siege. And who they're putting under siege is the Army of the Cumberland under William Rosecrans. Longstreet, and I'm not going to get too much into this. Longstreet
Chattanooga.
Longstreet wants to maneuver around all this. He doesn't want to engage in the siege operation. Bragg does. Bragg's in overall control. So, Longstreet says, have at it. I'll go do something else. And it's during this siege that Grant's coming towards the east with his army, the Tennessee. And he opens up the Cracker Line to supply Rosecrans' army. And again, it's another successful operation by Grant, pulling the Union Army's feet out of the fire, and this moves him up the chain as far as stature goes with the government in D.C. So Lee's army has sent fully a third of his army away. Meade's hanging out. For some reason, Meade thinks he's got 80,000 men. He keeps repeating this multiple times. I don't know where the 80,000 come from. They know, they've gotten intelligence that Longstreet's been sent out to Tennessee, and then they get the results from that subsequent battle. After that, the Union Army says, we got to reinforce out there. So what the Union Army is going to do is they're going to send the 11th and 12th Corps out to Tennessee.
Right.
And they send these two corps under the command of Major General Joseph Hooker. So he's back in the picture. He doesn't leave like McClellan does. You never hear from him again until the presidential election.
Right. Hooker's back in the saddle.
Hooker's back in the saddle, and Henry Slocum's not happy about it. Henry Slocum tells D.C., I'm not going to serve under him, and he doesn't. They get somebody else. I can't remember who takes charge of the 12th Corps, but it's not Slocum.
Mike, you know?
Not off the top of my head. I'll find out, though.
But he
Google
says,
it, please.
I'm not going to do it. And all right. And then Burnside's out there, too, with a little, he's got the 9th Corps out there, too. So all these Union troops are moving out there. So while Meade has lost 2 of his corps, he's lost these 9-month regiments, and he sent soldiers up to quell the draft in these different cities. New York's not the only city. They are getting replacements slowly but surely. They're building back up their army. So eventually, when it comes time to start moving, he's going to have more men than Lee does. It's the way it always is. But in his mind, again, he doesn't think he has enough men. So then we start to keep it moving, what's called the Bristoe Campaign. And it culminates probably, Bristoe Station is part of it. It doesn't culminate because it's a fluid moving thing, north and back south. August 13th and 14th, we have, call it the Battle of Auburn. Auburn is southwest of Bristoe, and it's a small place. It's not a very big engagement. What's interesting there, well, let me back up.
Go ahead.
How do we get to this? How do we get to Auburn? Lee is behind the Rappahannock River. Meade is up by Lee is behind the Rapidan River. Meade is in and around the Rappahannock River. And again, they form this V, a V on its side where the point of the V is to the east. And the 2 different arms of the V come off heading west. And you got this big gap between the 2 rivers the further west you go. Lee, who doesn't have a problem with not moving, he decides he is going to try to outmaneuver Meade in his army. So he has 2 corps left under A.P. Hill and Richard Ewell, and they're going to start west, and then they're going to head towards the north. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm. It does.
They're going to move, not necessarily parallel lines, but they're both out to the west moving. A.P. Hill is further west than Ewell, and A.P. Hill is further north than Ewell. So they're both moving, and they're going to maneuver Meade off of his Rappahannock line. Because if Meade sits still, the Confederate Army is going to get behind him and get in between them and D.C. So Meade is forced to move. Now, Meade's going to call this a tactical repositioning or
withdrawal, redeployment.
Not a retreat.
No, redeployment.
But you had to move. You couldn't sit still.
Right.
Lee has the initiative, no matter how you look at it. Okay. So they're moving. And so Meade is going to have to pull back his army and move too. So they're falling back. Out in this area, you have, once the Union Army came down to the Rappahannock River, their main supply line is the Orange and Alexander Railroad, the O&A Railroad. It is out there towards the west of the Rappahannock River. And it crosses the river, but it's the western arm of the river. As Lee is moving up, Meade is going to pull back and try to keep the line of communication open with them in D.C. and the supply line open and all that. But they're moving up, but they're going to engage at a little place called Auburn, 13th and 14th, of October. What's interesting about that is you've got Ewell now. They're out to the west of Auburn. A.P. Hill is further to the northeast. He's moving up further. And Stuart somehow gets, and then you have the Union line to the east. Stuart's cavalry command somehow gets trapped on the east side of the Union line. So he's behind the enemy lines, and he's in this little, way I read it, a little valley, it's a very small valley. Like he's got high ground on either side of him, but he can hear the Union Army moving, and he's sort of trapped, and he needs to figure a way out of this. So they spend the night down here in this little culvert or something, and they can't make noise until they can get out of there. So if the Union Army's alerted to this, they could have destroyed Stuart's cavalry right then and there, but they don't know he's down there. So they have this battle here. Stuart gets out of his predicament. Union Army's going to pull back. They're heading to a place. It's to the northeast called Catlet Station, and it's on the way up to Bristoe, which is on the way up to Centerville, which is on the way up to Manassas. They're trying to pull back to this area, all in an effort to keep Lee out there and not behind Union lines. So they pull back. The next big fight is Bristoe Station, and that's on the 14th. The last two corps moving up from Meade's army, the very last corps is the 2nd Corps under Gouverneur Warren. The corps in front of them moving is the 5th Corps under Sykes. And the 5th Corps under Sykes has been told, maintain communication and connection of some sort with the 2nd Corps. Don't move further on until they've maintained a connection with you, and then move. Don't leave them behind, in other words, where they're isolated. Well, that's what Sykes does. They take off and go too fast. They leave Warren's corps behind. Warren's corps is moving up, and they enter the area of Bristoe Station, and there's a big railroad embankment there.
Okay.
AP Hill's out to the west. It's northwest. AP Hill's vanguard sees them. Jubal early. Look what we got. We've got an isolated Union force. Let's attack them and destroy them. But back behind Hill and moving up, more in line with Warren, like chasing him, is Ewell. If you wait and allow Ewell to come up, then both of you might have a chance to destroy them. Instead, AP Hill lines a couple of brigades up and attacks, and he's got artillery, but he's attacking a fortified position. They're behind this railroad embankment, and the 2nd Corps just tears them up. They capture a couple flags, at least 2 guns, and there's dead bodies everywhere. Confederates, this is a big blunder by AP Hill. You wonder where all this alacrity was at Gettysburg, because he goes into this and says, let's go, boys. We're going to attack now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's a disaster for AP Hill and for the Confederates.
Well, his VD was probably feeling better at this point.
I guess so. He had one of those drugs you see in the thousands of pharmaceutical commercials we get now.
Right. The Slocum answer, if you want to circle back to
Go ahead.
John Geary?
It looks like Lincoln assured Slocum he wouldn't have to serve in a fighting command under Hooker, and he lets him split the corps. So Geary stays with Hooker, and Slocum and Williams go off to guard the railroads, and Slocum ends up in Vicksburg.
So Geary is under Hooker as the 12th Corps?
Yes, but it's just his division. So it's just Cobham
it's a division.
And Greene.
Okay. So
it's Hooker takes a Corps plus out there. That's what you call Corps plus the division. Yep.
Interesting. Okay, gotcha.
So, and this is it's a sort of a famous episode. Lee comes up and sees what happens, and he's, Lee doesn't yell a lot, so we're told. But
I think he does, though.
He probably does.
I think we have it documented.
There is no time.
That's pretty yelling.
Right.
I have told you there is no time.
He's lost his patience.
He has lost his patience, but you're saying there's another time that he yells.
Well, he's not necessarily yelling, but, he's talking to APL like, yeah, you shouldn't have done this. And, APL's trying to give excuses, but Lee stops him and says, get your men to bury these people, and he rides off. And that's a rebuke that really stings.
Lee's not happy.
No, it's clear the way he addressed him. So we have that. Warren gets it together. They keep moving up. Then the next thing we have is Lee's army has pushed the Union Army back towards Centerville. They're falling back to Manassas.
Okay, Lee gets
his cavalry out, and they're trying to see if they can, get some inroads, do anything. Lee comes to the conclusion, we've done all we can do. Let's pull back now. So the army starts moving backwards, the Army of Northern Virginia, back to the area they came from. In the rear guard, they have Stuart's cavalry to guard against the Union Army chasing them, while the Union Army sort of pushes out with their cavalry. So you have Justin Kilpatrick and his men pushing up against Stuart's cavalry.
Okay.
So they're moving southwest. They get to a place called Buckland Mills.
Oh, yes.
Stuart gets word that Fitz Lee's cavalry is out towards the east, and it might not be really due east, but it's out towards the eastern flank. his flank as they're looking north, and he comes up with an idea. Let's keep moving backwards, draw the Union cavalry further south, and once they're past you, talking to Fitz Lee, you attack, we'll attack, and we'll have them surrounded. So they're drawing south. They get across this bridge at a creek called Broad Run. And Custer, George Custer,
there he
is with Kilpatrick. He is behind. He's the last in line. And what's the date? 19th of October. That morning, he tells Kilpatrick, look, my men haven't eaten in a couple of days, or I don't know how long it's been. They need food, and I'm going to stop, and I'm going to feed them. Kilpatrick says, no, you need to keep coming. He says, no, I'm not. We're stopping here. That's that. Take it or leave it. Right. So he stops to feed his troops. Well, that sort of screws up the Confederate plans, because now Fitz Lee is going to, he doesn't run into him. But Custer, when he's ready to finally move, and they're moving towards the southwest now, on Custer's left flank, he sends out one of his cavalry regiments. I forget which Michigan. It's the 5th Michigan, maybe. Don't quote me on that. But he sends them out there, look, guard our left flank. Well, they go out there, and they see Confederate cavalry, and they realize what's over here. And so word gets sent back. Then it eventually blossoms into a fight. And about that time, Stuart turns on Kilpatrick and attacks him. What this amounts to is a rout. The Confederate artillery routs the Union Army, and they race back up the road, headed toward the northeast. And this becomes the Buckland races, because it's a race. So they chase them up. Stuart's cavalry chases the Union Army up the road. They fall back because they've done all the damage they can do, and it's an embarrassment to Kilpatrick and so forth. So this is all right near where my family is, and I remember reading Custer Victorious, and they talk about this fight here, and I was like, I don't think he was victorious, but
no, the book Custer Victorious,
okay.
yeah,
gotcha.
And so they talk about this part, and I'm like, wait a second, I know where all that stuff is. And by the way, if you ever want to go and see this is Route 29 or 15, same thing. They kind of merge and become one for a while down in this area, the New Baltimore area, Virginia, Gainesville, that area.
Yeah.
And on the corner of Highway 15 and 29 is this great seafood restaurant that has been there since as long as I can remember. It's called Blue Ridge Seafood. And it is now surrounded. It used to just be this one house that has been turned into a restaurant, surrounded by just thickets of miles and miles of cedar trees and other things. And now that's all shopping centers. And it's such a shame.
But you know what?
But Blue Ridge Seafood is still there, and it's delicious.
If it wasn't shopping centers, it would be data centers, because that's what's taking over now. Prince William,
why can't they go do that shit on the plains, right?
And they don't produce a lot of jobs. No. If you look at the parking lot, because they're all around me,
right?
If you look at the parking lot of these data centers, they're not very big.
No.
The visitor center out here, Gettysburg, that's about the size of it.
Yeah.
And that shows you don't need a lot of people to plug in the thing every morning.
No.
And they use a lot of energy. But
no, you're right. It could be that, or it could be solar farms. Either way, it's just ugly.
Unfortunately, they don't put them anywhere else, because the people putting those things in care more about money than they do American history. It's a fact.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Because they're looking forward.
Matt, is that the seafood place that's like where the bank is right on the corner of the intersection there?
Yeah, Capital One.
Okay, yeah.
You know where I'm talking?
No, I can see it on the computer that you're looking
on. You should say, yeah, I've been there many times. I agree with you. It's great.
Yeah.
All right, so Meade is outmaneuvered, Lee is outmaneuvered. Meade, whatever you call it, Meade fell backwards towards Manassas again. The same old ground they've been in. For a while, a lot of these Union soldiers think, we're going to fight here a third time.
Yeah.
And they don't want to fight there a third time, because they lost twice before. It's not a good place for them. So, but Lee figures, I've done all I can. I'm going to pull back. And he pulls back to the Rappahannock River in that area. So we got a little bit of a lull now. And So this comes from, again, General Hayes to his father-in-law, John McFadden. This is November 2nd. Dear sir, the first twang of the bugle says it is morning, and now it is rolling across the plain from corps to corps, calling Uncle Sam's boys up for another day's work. It is probable we break camp today to take a new position, perhaps for the winter. As for the prospects of a fight, the indications are small, although it is understood among us that Meade has ordered we must fight. I believe our general's proclivities tend more towards the cowl than the lance. I had to look up cowl.
Yes.
Cowl is like a hood thing, like
Right.
monks wearing
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's usually something you hear in like medieval movies or something.
and we know what a lance is. You fight with a lance. You don't fight with the cowl.
I
So-
thought you were talking about a member of the Backstreet Boys.
Oh, I don't know about all that. You lost me. I was with you at the seafood restaurant, but you lost me.
Speaking of seafood, that's Lance's last name, isn't it?
Bass. It's Lance Seafood?
Lance Seafood.
Lance Seafood.
All right, let's see. See, I'm not going to get to all this just cause.
That's all right. I mean, you know.
But I do this on our outside tours and stuff. Bring much more than I ever need.
So, but as this is going on here, is the condition of the Army of the Potomac, or not, maybe not is, has it improved by October or November? I guess we're up to now.
They've gotten men,
But
but they've done a lot of marching. The cavalry has been engaging. I mean,
Right.
the cavalry is very active, and familiar names: Kilpatrick, Custer, Buford, Gamble. They are very active, but I think after this movement where they get pushed back and then they move slowly back down, the Union Army, the rank and file, from what I can gather, what I've read, they're sort of impressed with Meade.
Okay.
Now this isn't the upper echelon of command, the
Right.
generals and stuff leading. This is the soldier in the ranks to say, yeah, we didn't let Meade trap us like they did in Second Manassas. Meade's being smart about things. We wish we weren't here. It kind of sucks. We're ready for winter quarters. And every time they stop, they think, yeah, we're probably going into winter quarters because that's what they had done.
Right.
But Meade sort of got pressure on him. I got to do something. Even though they're telling him, look, demonstrate and growl at them, but don't attack.
Right.
So the rank and file soldier, from what I read, they're not displeased with Meade at this point.
So he's still under these demonstrate and growl at him orders. He's not been let loose yet.
Well, this Bristoe campaign, to me, is reacting. Lee took the initiative again. For everybody that thought Lee was done, he's looking for an opportunity still.
Okay.
That's the difference between Meade and Grant and Lee. Grant and Lee are more alike than Meade is.
Yes.
Those two look for opportunities.
Right.
And Meade is more like, he's not as bad, but more like McClellan and Hooker. Things have to be right.
Right.
And then we'll fight, rather than, he's not a who dares wins kind of guy.
Right.
He's who dares, once everything is perfect, we'll see how it goes.
Right. Yeah.
We'll hope for the best. So,
Yeah.
but like I said, the rank and file, surprisingly, from what I read, and I read quite a bit, they're not displeased with Meade because they're living still too. They've not been thrown into, just careless actions like what happens at Chancellorsville, particularly after Hooker gets taken out of the game. I'd have been bitter about that.
Sure.
Meade is bitter
Fredericksburg
then.
would certainly be bitter.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a better example. It seems they're carelessly being thrown at the enemy's line for nothing. It's running up against a brick wall.
But at this point, though, now we're getting towards November, right? Is where we are. So are they? How about as far as equipment and shoes and food and all that? Are they in a better position at this point now, or are they still? I'm
glad you said that because I would have forgotten this point. I mentioned earlier the O&A Railroad,
Opie and Anthony Railroad.
Yes, when the Army of the Potomac's down on the Rappahannock River, that is their supply line. When Meade moves up and pushes, I keep switching around their names. I usually do this in late July, It's 5:00 in the evening, and I want to go home, and I'm on a tour.
Well, it's 5:17.
I have the Union Army on Seminary Ridge and the Confederates on Cemetery Ridge.
Right.
When Lee pushes Meade's army up towards Centerville and Manassas, but then pulls back, as they pull back, they are destroying that railroad.
Okay.
So this creates a pause in things, because before Meade can do anything, Herman Haupt, railroad dude, has to repair that railroad.
Okay.
Because that is their supply line. So I would have totally blown by that if you hadn't mentioned it. Real quick, this is not a rank and file guy, but it's not a leader. It's the surgeon for the 105th PA, William Watson. He starts the letter, then he finishes it on October 21st near Catlett Station. I did not get time to conclude my letter the other day, for we received orders to pack up without delay, and in an hour's time we were again on the march. Truly, there is no rest for the wicked. We arrived at this place today, so we are again but a few miles from the Rappahannock. Why General Meade retreated to the fortifications without giving battle, I don't pretend to say, for the very good reason that I don't know. But I do pretend to say that had he fought them, he could have easily beaten them, saved thousands of dollars of Uncle Sam's property, and the very probability prevented Lee from reinforcing Bragg. Lee's already reinforced Bragg. The railroad from Bristoe Station to the Rappahannock is completely destroyed, what we just talked about.
Okay.
Not a tie or rail or bridge remains. You never saw a road more thoroughly gutted. Even the abutments have been blown up. It will take at least a week, if not more, to repair the road. The most pleasant part of the business is that the rebels, when we advance, decline to fight and have recrossed the Rappahannock. This is when Meade decides to come back south. Meade turns and he follows them. From what I have stated, you will naturally conclude that it was a strange move we made. So it was. It possibly may have been strategic, but I can't see it. We will be apt to remain here till the road is fixed. After that time alone can enable me to say what this army will do. I am truly thankful the Pennsylvania and Ohio elections went strong for the Union. That's the other thing. You have the midterm elections.
Right.
And, they went the way this fellow wanted them to go. So, let's see. All right. So Meade's going to come back down, but before he can go into any offensive operations, they got to repair that railroad, because they've got to refit, and that takes time. I like this. Again, if you've never read the letters of Alexander Hayes, they're fun. Writing to his father-in-law again, November 18th. Dear sir, the express mule train, U.S. mail, brought yours of the 14th last evening. Also a remittance from my dear guarding angel of a pair of warm, comfortable gloves, which I suppose instinct told her I needed very much. All of which very acceptable, and I am much envied for my possessions. We are in status quo, and I have been annihilating Lee's forces by masterly inactivity. 10 days we have eaten, drunk, and been merry, probably under the continuation that next spring we must die.
Oh, jeez.
How prophetic.
Yeah, right.
Next spring he dies.
Really?
Yeah, he gets killed.
He knew it.
Yeah. So.
Well, and then things start getting harder next spring.
It really is a different war.
Yeah.
So the romance is gone.
How many men are in the Army of the Potomac at this point? Roughly.
I am not sure.
Because they've received recruits.
They've received recruits. They've
replacements.
built back up their ranks. They outnumber. Lee probably has 50,000, 60 at most. Probably not that much, because a third's still gone. Longstreet's gone.
Right.
So it's probably between 40 and 50,000. I'd have to say that the Union Army is close to doubling that. They've got a lot of men.
It's amazing. Goes to show you don't need a lot to be effective.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But yeah. That's the thing. That's the difference between Grant and Meade.
Like, I knew a guy who died a millionaire. He never made $100,000 a year in his life, but he was smart with his money, and he made it work for him.
Oh yeah. I tell
you can do a lot with a little.
Yeah. I tell my kids all the time, if you do what I tell you, which you won't, because no kids listen, you could be a millionaire when you're my age.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
You're not going to do it.
I know.
So it's just a matter of getting out of the here and now and thinking about the future.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, and this is a difference between Grant and Meade, Lee is in Grant's head. Lee is in Meade's head. Lee never gets in Grant's head because they haven't faced each other until 1864.
Right.
Now, again, not to get sidetracked, I think those two men are pretty equal, though. There's only one time Grant outguesses Lee, and that's when he gets to Vicksburg. Not Vicksburg. I'm all over the place.
Right.
Petersburg. Lee doesn't anticipate that in time. All these other moves he anticipates, and he beats Grant to a spot.
Right.
You have these big eruptions. But Lee is in Meade's head because that's who he's been fighting, over a year now.
Sure.
And so,
and that's the other thing is he's, whether he's Army commander or a Corps commander or a division commander, like Lee has been beating them.
Yeah.
And he beat him once, but he probably feels like we just got away by the skin of our teeth on that.
Yeah.
Because they gave as good as they got, both sides in the Battle of Gettysburg.
Yep.
They're both walking away hurt really bad. So he knows Lee firsthand, whereas Grant's coming in knowing him by reputation. Never faced him on a battlefield.
Yeah. And he's, why are y'all scared of him? He's just a man, puts his boots on like we do.
Right.
But he's no Braxton Bragg.
Right.
So there is merit to say, we got to be cautious against this guy.
But Grant's a different one too.
He is a different guy. And maybe it's his upbringing. I don't know what it is, but
you noticed how our commanders in the Civil War have had their reputations tarnished by American historians more than the Confederate commanders.
People romanticize things.
They do.
And that's what they've done.
They romanticize the underdog in this country. We loved it.
And after the war, you had an entire population lionizing Lee.
Yeah.
Nobody in the North lionized anybody.
No, because the North was moving on building the goddamn country.
Yeah. Now Grant gets to be president. He's not a very good one, or the people he hires to work with him are not.
There are a lot of things that tarnish his reputation. Yeah. Well, and also, he's a butcher. He's a drunk. During the war, so it's harder to come out from under that. But he won the war.
Yeah.
But he didn't win the propaganda war.
No, not at all. But I don't think he's interested in that.
No,
that's not his thing.
No,
although Lee's not interested in either.
Right.
Yeah,
they're a different breed, those two.
Yeah.
From the rest of us.
And they're from different eras.
Yeah. Yes.
Lee is from the old era, so to speak.
He's like the last of chivalry.
Yeah. Here's another issue they're having. And I didn't know this until doing all this. And this comes from the 14th Kinetic, their history. With 8 days' rations in their haversacks, the troops marched on the morning of Saturday, November 7th, about 20 miles to Kelly's Ford, and the next day crossed the Rappahannock for the 9th time at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, bivouac near Brandy Station. The part of that is with 8 days' rations in their haversacks. Little on, it was a relief to the men to learn that there was to be a decided reform in overissuing rations and ammunitions. Dunn Brown has this to say on this point. I am greatly encouraged, more reconciled to not being Commander-in-Chief of the Armies of America than I have been for a long time, for there are actually some glimmerings of sense beginning to be perceptible, even in the management of our War Department. An order has come down, I am informed, by a credible witness who has actually seen it, has actually come down, and it is to take effect immediately that the men are not to be compelled to carry in their haversacks henceforth more than 5 days' rations at one time. I had utterly despaired of the thing, had seen the 8 days, the 10 days, and in one or two instances the 11 days of mule burden piled on men's backs over and over again, cruelly, wastefully, and usefully, never once accomplishing purpose, never in any single instance lasting over 6 days. So I had concluded that the administration was in some way politically committed to the arrangement, and that I might unintentionally be committing high copperheadism by grumbling about it. And what they're talking about is early in the war, when they're about to move, you hear frequently cook and pack 3 days.
3 days, yeah.
Here, you see it a lot. We've been told to pack 8 days ration, and they're given extra ammunition. You've got to carry that. And so there's actually an order. It's in the ORs, not the 3 that we concentrate on, but you got to read beyond that. There's a lot of stuff that men will not be compelled to carry. I forget the cap they put on it, but it's far below 8 days rations and only 40 rounds of ammunition from now on.
Okay.
Because one of the big things with these armies throughout the war is getting them in position to attack at the right time at the right place. That takes time. If you put this burden on their backs, they move slower.
Yeah.
It takes more time. Your army's less effective.
Yeah, you're weighing them down.
That's another one of these things that I came across several times. They're grumbling about carrying 8 days rations. And this is one thing that's universal. I'm sure it was back then. I know it is today. It was back 40 years ago when I first joined the Army. If you give a soldier extra food, the soldier suddenly gets hungry.
Yeah.
They eat the food.
Sure. That's human nature.
2 days goes by, the 8 days rations is gone because they've eaten it.
Yeah.
And so it does no good.
Right.
You know, of course, you've got to bring along wagons so you can feed them on the move. Okay, that's a logistics problem. Get your S4 off their rear ends to do their job. But back then, they're making them carry it.
Yeah.
So, and they're going to be hungry.
Sure.
Because that thought's in their mind.
Well, and I know I have it.
I got some chow in my bag.
Sure. And especially when if your experience in the Army has been where you've gone days without food,
you're going to gorge.
After packing 3 days rations and food doesn't come to you for another 2 or 3 days after that.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, oh man, I'm living like a king now. We didn't have this a year ago, boys. Ha 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 ha. And then you eat it all up and yeah.
But I just found it really interesting that it had to come down from Halleck, the War Department. Soldiers will no longer be required to carry this amount of chow and this amount of rounds.
Right.
The rounds you can't do anything about. You can't eat them.
No, and they're the ones that weigh down considerably.
Yeah. And usually previous to this, they were issued when battle was imminent because it saves time. But battle's imminent. You're just not maneuvering like they are here.
Right.
So speaking of maneuvering, let's push it along. Everything comes south. The Confederates are down below the Rappahannock River, except at this railroad where the O&A Railroad crosses the Rappahannocks called Rappahannock Station. They have an outpost on the north side of the river. Now Meade's army is moving down. He comes up with this plan. We're going to get across the river in 2 different spots. Kelly's Ford, more towards the east, and Rappahannock Station. The 6th Corps is out here towards the west at Rappahannock Station. You got the 6th Corps and the 5th Corps under the overall command of John Sedgwick, Uncle John. And then we have, at Kelly's Ford, we have the 3rd Corps with William French. We'll give you the 2nd Corps. And the 1st Corps is guarding the O&A Railroad. So they're back guarding the supply line.
Okay.
So we want to do this quick, move into the area between the 2 rivers in this sideways V, and maybe we can catch part of Lee's army in that V and destroy them with numbers. So November 7th, it's towards the evening. Well, let me back up. Earlier in the day, the 3rd Corps gets across Kelly's Ford pretty good. The 3rd Corps moves into that area south of the Rappahannock River. 2nd Corps is going to stack up and be ready to move the next morning to cross the river, which they do. So things are moving. In the evening, and it's not because of anything Sedgwick does or anybody else. I think the fellow's name was Russell. I think he was a brigadier general or maybe a colonel. He's in charge of the division, and I think it's William Russell. I can't remember the first name. He decides to send out skirmishers and then have another skirmish line behind that. But these skirmishers keep pushing, and they sort of push the Confederates fairly easily, and they're falling back. And so he's wanting to attack with more forces, and he asks his higher-ups, I think it's Albion Howe or Horatio Wright, names familiar with Gettysburg. Hey, can we get more troops? And they say no, or Albion Howe, I think, is the next in line. He agrees, and he asks Horatio Wright, who's now in charge of the Corps, because Sedgwick is sort of a wing commander, if that makes sense. And Wright says, no, we got to use caution here. But Russell takes it upon himself and just keeps pushing these men. And the 6th Maine comes on board, and they start driving these Confederates. And then he gets help on either flank from other units, and it seems like we can push these Confederates out of this foothold they have on the north bank of the Rappahannock River. And they do. But it's dusk falling into dark, and what that does on the Confederate side, they've seen the 6th Corps line up earlier in the day when there is visibility. When it's night, they don't know how many of them are attacking. So they get stuck there.
Right.
And to make the story shorter than it needs to be, it's a big Union victory. They push across Rappahannock Station, and they basically capture or give the Confederates a brigade's worth of casualties. Most of those men are going to be captured. They're from North Carolina regiments and the Louisiana Tigers. And so Lee suddenly lost at least a brigade and a battery of guns and a few stands of colors. And the Union Army comes across the Rappahannock River at that point. So he's got 2 different spots on the Rappahannock River now. Meade has come across. Kelly's Ford, Rappahannock Station. But it's dark when the Rappahannock Station action happens.
Okay.
It's confusing, but they do have night fighting. But they've come across. Lee is scrambling. And this is one time Meade is, surprised Lee. Lee is scrambling to get the rest of his army back across the Rapidan River. But he's got to get all these supply wagons and all this mess going first because they're slower. You got to protect them. So he gets them going. They're working all night to get back across the river. The next day, November 8th, the 2nd Corps crosses at Kelly's Ford. The rest of the Sedgwick's wing is going to cross at Rappahannock Station. They move in. They can see Confederate cavalry over on Fleetwood Hill near Brandy Station. They push their cavalry forward. They push them back. Union Army moves up a little bit more. It's about 3 hours of daylight left, and Meade stops them and puts them into bivouac. Why didn't you keep going? Keep pushing. That's the difference. Grant keeps pushing.
He's pushing.
Lee keeps pushing. Meade doesn't, for whatever reason.
It's cold. It's getting cold. It's getting dark.
You know what, though? And I'm not going to get into politics, but there is one of these days in here is 76 degrees.
Yeah. Yes.
It's mild. There are some cold days and cold nights, but there are also plenty of mild days and mild.
You know what else I remember from Custer Victorious? I want to say it's New Year's Day. It was in the 70s down there. And I only know this because I was reading it around that time of year. And in New Jersey, this was in New Jersey at the time, we had a 70-something degree day in January. And I was like, that's interesting. Even back in the Civil War.
We have these days. You know what we've had this winter? Cold.
Shit, yeah.
Good God. It's cold. Why? Because it's winter.
We've had winter this winter for the first time in a long time.
But it's all cyclical.
Yeah.
You know why?
But they did have a lot of cars back then. Train cars.
Because of them, we're suffering today.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Well,
so there you go.
Let's tax them. So, Meade hesitates.
See, now I'm going to get in trouble for joking around about that.
Me too. I'm not going to have people coming on my tours.
That's right.
But that puts a wrap on the Bristoe campaign.
Okay.
Both armies are sitting there, and I'm going to move quickly along now because I don't know how long we've been into this, but I don't want to bore your viewers. Lee is behind the Rapidan River at this time. It's the bottom part of that V. Meade isn't done. Meade wants to try to attack them in some form or fashion. So, again, I don't know what happens, but Meade decides to move with alacrity. And he comes up with this plan. He's going to get around Lee's right flank, and he's just going to do it. And so It's not perfect, but Lee's force is on an east-west axis. So they're east-west, facing north. Meade is going to come down and try to get on the right flank, the eastern flank of Lee's force. Mm-hmm. As they do that, William French is in the vanguard, the 3rd Corps. William French gets across Kelly's Ford pretty good early November. And let me get you the dates for this. This is late November. The first big little fight is 27th of November of the Mine Run campaign. And Mine Run is a small creek, stream. It runs perpendicular to the Rapidan River. So It's north-south, not perfect, but north-south. Rapidan's east-west. William French and the 3rd Corps are trying to cross the ford there. It's taking them too long. It's messing with Meade's alacrity. I just like saying it now.
Like saying it now,
It's my word of the day. It lasts more than a day.
Right.
So they're coming down. It alerts Lee, hey, something's going on the right flank. That allows him to turn his force instead of east-west, north-south behind this stream called Mine Run. And so Edward Allegheny Johnson's division moves out. They engage the 3rd Corps at a place called Payne's Farm on the 27th. That puts a bump in the road for the Union Army. It slows them down. They can't move. They're stuck behind this. They have to resolve this before they can keep going. Eventually they do, and Warren's 2nd Corps gets out in front, and they're moving south. Again, now they're trying to get around Lee's southern flank, the southern end of Mine Run.
Okay.
They look at it, decide, we could probably attack here. And Meade says, okay, let's do that. We're all going to attack. Then the next morning, Warren goes out, and what was Lee's nickname in the beginning of his tenure of when he comes on to the Army of Northern, that and what else? When he comes on to the Army of Northern Virginia, what do they call him based on a reputation?
Spades.
King of Spades.
Yeah.
Lee has him dig in all night.
Okay.
And so when Warren reapproaches what they're going to do the next day, he looks at this line and says, we can't attack this. This isn't going to be good.
Right.
Meade agrees, and that ends the Mine Run campaign. Whole lot of moving, not much going on. But that ends the campaigning of the winter.
Okay.
Then they can finally go in. Let me mention this real quick before I forget. One notable figure from the Battle of Gettysburg leaves the Army on November 21st, and that is John Buford. He doesn't come back because he dies from typhoid fever.
That's right.
So they lose
Buford there.
Yep. But that ends the campaigning. Then they do go into winter quarters, and they wait for what's to come in the next campaign season. I hope all that made sense.
Of course it does. Of course it does.
You know what? Let me just, as a side note, I listened to the other guests, the other guides. I sound like a bumbler compared to them. And I know I do.
Well, you know what? I get a lot of letters. In fact, I have one here. Let me read it to you. It says, Dear Matt, I love Lewis's bumbling. It reminds me of sitting at a diner in a down-home country town.
That's funny.
So there you go. So people like it.
That's good. You know, I tell them out there on the Get Out of the Car tours, those lovely things we used to have. They're the best.
You have a fan club,
They're
Lewis.
the best.
You have a fan club. I can't deny it. I can't deny it.
I love when I run into them, and which I do from time to time on the field. It's always fun.
We're going to take a break. We'll come back with our listeners' questions. If you're watching live on Patreon and you want to call in and ask a question, 717-420-1978 is the phone number. We'll be right back after these words.
Yeah!
While we're in commercial, you should get in the phone queue. Call 717-420-1978 to ask a Gettysburg guide. We'll be right back.
The minstrel boy to war has gone. In the ranks of death you will find him. His father's sword he hath girded on, and his wild harp slung behind him. Land of song.
The Gettysburg Museum of History, located right here in the center of Gettysburg, PA. Owner and curator Eric Dorr grew up here and has spent his life collecting and preserving history through artifacts ranging from the Civil War, the Battle of Gettysburg, World War II, presidential items, pop culture, and more. His museum is free and open to visitors Wednesday through Sunday, 11 to 5 p.m., where you can stop by and immerse yourself in some of the most amazing artifacts that you would never believe exist in the middle of Gettysburg. If you're a fan of Band of Brothers and Everything Easy Company, you'll love his exhibit featuring the Dick Winters collection and artifacts from D-Day. You can even own your own piece of history by buying one of the many relics they have for sale in the museum and on the website GettysburgMuseumofHistory.com. The Gettysburg Museum of History is a non-profit 501c3 organization with a foundation that allows all purchases and donations to keep the museum operating and open free of charge. They have been featured on the History Channel, the Travel Channel, the Smithsonian Channel, and the Science Channel. Now you can check them out on American Artifact, the series on the YouTube channel, The History Underground. So that's the Gettysburg Museum of History at 219 Baltimore Street or the GettysburgMuseumofHistory.com.
At Digital History Pioneers Foundation, we are about grassroots history on digital platforms. That means we are about podcasters, documentarians, YouTubers, and even TikTokers. All of these creators are out there trying to share their love of history with the public. They don't need ideas, they need funding, both from viewers and corporate donors. DH Pioneer's initial funding focus is on the Civil War era, with a special emphasis on the Addressing Gettysburg podcast. So be a vital part of the unique content Addressing Gettysburg has in store by donating at dhpioneers.com and help bring your love of history to the people. Digital History Pioneers is an IRS Section 501c3 approved charitable corporation that makes any donation tax deductible to the fullest extent of the law.
You know, Steve, one of the greatest things ever to come out of not only Gettysburg, but I would say the entire state of Pennsylvania, and I'm including Jim Thorpe in them, is
Jim
this.
Thorpe, wow.
Yes, Little Ground Top. Little Ground Top is, and Jimmy Stewart, I include him in that as well, okay? And he was a general. And a movie star. Little Ground Top is our delicious coffee. Take a sniff. Smell that, okay?
Little Ground Top?
Yes.
Wow, that was creative. Who thought about that?
That was us.
Oh, that smells good.
Look at this. Oh, that smells good.
The tasting notes are cacao, wildflowers, and toasted sugar. I smell that toasted sugar.
You smell that toasted sugar, don't you? Do you like coffee?
I do like coffee.
You're a big coffee guy.
I do. I am a coffee guy.
Little Ground Top is available online. If you go to addressinggettysburg.com/cafe, you can even do a monthly or weekly or bi-weekly subscription to Little Ground Top. You just pay it and you spray it. No, pay it and forget it. Set it and forget it. That's what I'm talking about. They'll just send it to you. It'll pop in the mail. You'll be like, oh, I got another bag of Little Ground Top. And good, because I'm going through it so fast because it is so delicious. You can also get it at Bantam Roasters. You know where that is, right? Across from the Dobbin House.
I do.
And they have it in there, but I got to tell you something. They sell out within 3 days typically. So much so, they used to put 12 bags out. That's 12 pounds. Now they put 18 bags out.
That's 18 pounds. Yes.
That's right. And still they are moving fast. So the best thing for you to do is go to addressinggettysburg.com/cafe and order it online so that you never waste a trip. You know, some people say, oh, I'll get my bag when I go to Gettysburg. And they go in before they leave on Sunday, and it's all
18
gone.
pounds are gone?
All gone. They put them out Friday night or Saturday morning, okay? And they're gone typically definitely by Monday. All right, and on a slow week, they're done by Tuesday, Wednesday.
You should start signing these bags.
You know what? I'm going to do that right now.
Okay.
Where's the Sharpie? Do I have a Sharpie in here?
Yes, you do.
I do. Please hand me the Sharpie. I'm going to sign it. Because you know what? I'm giving this to you.
You even went Ron Popeil and set it and forget it?
That's right. Thanks for coming on, Matt.
I might resubscribe as a Patreon now.
All right, maybe you should, because I've been missing you. All right, and you know what, Steve? Because you come on the show and we don't pay, this is your gift, okay? There you go.
I wanted 18 pounds of coffee. I just get 1 pound?
Well, you can go buy the other 17 when you go over to Bantam Roasters, if they even have them on the shelf.
Are you still selling merch?
Yes.
You know, in my suitcase, I've got the Reynolds shirt.
Do you?
That was the best design, by the way.
That was a good one, yeah. That's good. Thank you for buying that.
Yes.
Anyway, 82 Steinware Avenue right here in Gettysburg, or addressinggettysburg.com/cafe. Little ground top. Set it and forget it.
You didn't get in the phone queue during the break? Come on. What are you, chicken? 717-420-1978 is the number to prove me wrong. Here's Matt.
All right, and we are back now, and we're going to do the questions that were submitted by our patrons over at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg. If you'd like to submit questions for our Ask a Guide episodes, that's how you do it. And also, you just support the show. And if you really believe that history is something that needs to be learned and shared, we are a podcast of the people, by the people, and for the people, ladies and gentlemen. So we need the people's support.
You know what the problem with America is?
What's that?
That phrase is now, we are for the party, of the party, by the party.
Exactly. That is, I've been saying that for years, and people tell me, well, you got to pick one.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. I didn't vote for
No, you don't. Mikey says it too. We have unanimous.
I voted for myself. So anybody interested in the next campaign, I've got a platform. My budget for advertisement's pretty low, but I'm always a candidate.
Well, I'll give you free airspace here.
Thank you.
Carrie Schrock says, why didn't Lincoln replace Meade in the fall of 1863?
There was no need to. Grant's sort of busy, and who are you going to get to replace him? He had won the Battle of Gettysburg. Then he comes south, and they're telling him, we can't give you any men. We're going to have to detach men to go quell these things. We've got the 9-month regiments leaving, so your manpower is being reduced. We can't reinforce you. Snarl your teeth, but don't advance. So there's no cause to replace him in the fall. And he's never replaced.
Right.
He's got Grant telling him what to do over his shoulder later on in 1864, but he's never replaced. There's just no reason to at that point, because he had done nothing to warrant being replaced.
Grant Bryan, all the way from Australia, has a couple of questions here. He says, did Meade consider any changes to command at corps division level for the rest of 1863? We kind of touched on that there.
I think they were thrust upon him because of injury and casualties.
Which Union commanders performed, he's skipping ahead here, but we'll ask it anyway. Which Union commanders performed so badly that by the time Grant came east, they were transferred out?
Well, they don't let Sickles come back. What they do with the 3rd Corps and the 1st Corps is they, disband them and take those units and merge them in with other corps. The 3rd or the 2nd, 5th, was it 2nd, 5th, and 6th. I don't know. I don't know of any commanders that perform so badly that he transfers them out. He's given authorization to replace Meade, though, if he feels so inclined. And Grant says, no, I don't have any reason to replace Meade. So when he is ordered to take over for Halleck, Lincoln tells him, if you need to replace Meade, go ahead and do it. But he doesn't. He keeps Meade. I did the episode about Gouverneur Warren. I thought he was unfairly treated. He gave that authorization later in 1865 to Sheridan. But he might have replaced some that performed badly when he comes east, but I just can't think any off the top of my head.
All right. David Walsack says, I'm aware of the Army of the Potomac from being interested in Gettysburg, but were there other armies in the Union Army of the Potomac? I'm sorry. Let me.
Yeah, you sound like me.
I know.
First day on the job, Matt. Don't be too harsh on yourself.
Let's take 2 here on this one.
How about who?
David Walsack says, I am aware of the Army of the Potomac from being interested in Gettysburg, but were there other armies in the Union, and the Army of the Potomac was the main fighting force? Was that the structure of the army? So he's asking, are there other armies in the Union, and was the Army of the Potomac the main army, or were they all the main armies depending on where they were?
There are other armies. There are the Army of the Cumberland, that is under the command of William Rosecrans at this time, later to be replaced with George Thomas, and the Army of the Tennessee, it's Grant. And then the Army of the Potomac, it's the principal army in the sense that all the media being newspapers, are in the east.
Right.
Washington's in the east, of course. So the important theater, as far as perception goes, is in the east. Strategically, you can say there's points out west that are more strategic. For instance, what was more important, Vicksburg or Gettysburg? Vicksburg was more important.
Right.
But Gettysburg is in the east. It's a northern territory also, but strategically, Vicksburg's more important because it shrinks along with Port Houston. It shrinks the Confederacy. Gettysburg doesn't do that.
But but the main point is, I mean, the war in Virginia is taking place between the two capitals,
yeah.
Right? The Lee's incursion into the north is not far from New York, Baltimore, Philadelphia, all these major cities with major papers.
Yeah.
Was the Associated Press around at the time?
That I don't know.
I feel like it was. Can you look that up, Mike?
New York had a ton of newspapers, and the reporters traveled with the armies.
Yeah. And so the word gets out faster out west. I mean, it's not like they don't have papers out west or anything, but it's the West isn't as developed as the East, I'm guessing.
It's 1856.
So the Associated Press was around. So and it's probably located in what, New York?
New York.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, Lincoln is aware of the armies out west and holds them in some importance because he stops Meade in August and September just to concentrate on what's happening out west because, Rosecrans has got himself in a pickle, bottled up at Chattanooga. So Tennessee is very important.
I guess you can kind of liken it to sort of 9/11, how, all the focus is on the Twin Towers.
Yeah,
right?
That makes sense. But
and second to that, the Pentagon, you got two big cities with media right there. But then Shanksville is in the middle of nowhere, and it gets short shrift in the story because there's no footage of it happening.
Yeah.
It's only aftermath, and the media isn't right there.
Yeah,
like
I think that's a very good analogy, and that's such a heroic story.
Yeah.
How that comes about.
I know. But
yeah, I think that's a pretty good analogy.
Unfortunately, heroism doesn't overshadow sensationalism.
Yeah.
Interesting fact real quick about the Associated Press. According to the magazine The Economist, which I know we all read.
We love it.
It says the Associated Press was formed by 5 daily newspapers in New York City to share the cost of transmitting news of the American-Mexican War.
Oh.
Or the Mexican-American.
That makes sense.
Okay. All right. Very good. So, David had a second question too. Same question, but for the Confederates. But there were others. I
Braxton Bragg is out. Then Joseph Johnson has an army down that actually surrenders after Lee down in North Carolina.
I think David and Carrie Schrock I think these are both the first times they sent in questions. So thank you, David. Maybe I'm wrong. But if it is your first time thank you. Jeffrey Pasnick says, how did the Army deal with the displeasure or the soldiers who were so connected to their corps that had to be moved to a new corps or welcome soldiers from the other corps? So that
happens in 1864 when they disband the 1st and the 3rd Corps just because of the casualty rate they suffered primarily at Gettysburg. And going back to the previous question, would Grant relieve somebody because they don't do well? I imagine if the 1st and 3rd Corps stay intact with their respective commanders that they leave Gettysburg with, French and Newton, they probably would have been relieved because they're not all that great.
Yeah.
Rather than do all that, they decide to, for manpower's sake, disband those two, merge them into, and it is a big deal. They lose their identity. When Hooker takes command, he establishes the Corps badges. There's a point of pride with that, and that's why he does it, along with identification on the battlefield. But you build that esprit de corps up, and all of a sudden you're being told to move to another corps. It's got to be a blow to you. But that happens in 1864 rather than this time period.
I've got an interesting thing about the 8th New Jersey guys. So 3rd Corps troops that are getting pushed into the 2nd Corps. We have accounts of them sewing their 3rd Corps badges on the insides of their hats because they're being forced to put that 2nd Corps badge now on the outside. Oh. So they still maintain that pride underneath their kepis.
Okay. Always on their mind.
Always
the
on their
Third
mind.
Corps is always on their mind.
They were always on his mind.
Jeffrey has another one. He goes, what is more impressive at Buckland races? Custer outflanking the Confederates to control the Broad Run Bridge, or that he insisted his men have breakfast and did not pursue Stuart, and thereby surprising Fitz Lee by still being at the bridge? Seems pretty baller to be just like, go ahead, Kilpatrick. I'll catch up after breakfast.
Neither. He wanted his men fed, and he took a stand. I'm going to feed them.
Right.
And he just happened to be at the right place at the right time. At the end of the day, he joins the route like the rest of them. So, yeah, he just, I know there's a lot of Custer fans that are enthusiasts. I got to use enthusiasts.
Yeah, we're not fans.
But he, it is something to say, and I'm sure his men appreciate it. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to stop and eat.
Sure.
He just happened to stop and eat in the right spot.
Yeah. Good for him. Jessica File says, this doesn't necessarily apply. Now, that name I have not read before, so thank you, Jessica, for joining and submitting a question. This doesn't necessarily apply to the Army of the Potomac, but armies and generals. But can he explain, meaning you, Lewis, what staff officers do? Like, what does the adjutant general do, chief of staff, etc.? I don't even know all the positions. What was the point of having the adjutant general of the Army, Lorenzo Thomas? Did he have anything to do with the Army of the Potomac? What's up with that?
Thank you. That's a good question. They're all assistants to the general, the main guy. The adjutant general, Lorenzo Thomas, is probably an assistant to Henry Halleck, who's in charge at this point.
So he's like Halleck's spy.
Well, he's doing administrative stuff, paperwork, what have you. You need people to make sure the wheels of supply are rolling.
I mean, it's really, you just look at it like a boss of a business. Only an idiot like myself would be the only guy to do this.
Yeah.
Right? To do everything.
Mike is the adjutant general.
I wish Mike was the adjutant general.
Mike is the depressed lackey.
Mike, I don't even know what the word is for what Mike is.
Poor Mike.
But like Dave, who does the scheduling, I would say is
the secretary.
Is that what that
military
would be?
Secretary.
He would be the military secretary.
Armstead Long is Lee's military secretary until he goes and takes charge of Ewell's artillery.
So that is my staff. I have no staff.
Yeah.
So, but like a real business that, makes enough to hire people has a staff, because the boss is ineffective in his duties as the boss if he has to worry about paperwork.
Yeah.
And it's not that bosses are too good for paperwork. It's like, no, that's not my job. My job, that's the minutia of the job. I'm the big picture guy as the boss. And that's what a commanding general is. He's the big picture guy. He's got to worry about everything. And all those little things that you have to take care of need special attention. And so you have to devote somebody to, a supply and everything. Yeah. So there's got to be somebody in charge who can then inform you of, distill it and inform you of everything you need to know.
For instance, when Meade moves down to the Rappahannock and he wants to cross, and he has Sedgwick out there with his corps and Sykes and, the 6th and the 5th Corps, and then the 3rd and the 2nd are at Kelly's Ford. He doesn't tell him to do this. He has these orders dictated to somebody else.
Right.
And that somebody else is the one that makes sure those orders are disseminated to the right people to get those troops in the right spot.
Yeah.
The commander tells the adjutant general, chief of staff, probably mainly, or your military secretary is the guy who writes the orders. So you have all these assistants, because you can't write all these orders. You can't take these orders to whoever needs to receive them. You can't do all the supply stuff like you were mentioning. You have to have a staff. And that's one of the criticisms of Lee at Gettysburg and elsewhere, that his staff is just too small. Mm-hmm. And it's never big enough throughout the war when he's in charge. So they're just, think of all these people as assistants to the top guy. Mm-hmm. And Lorenzo Thomas I believe he's the adjutant general of the Army. That puts him strictly right beneath Henry Halleck. He's his assistant.
But he's not over Meade.
No.
He's kind of...
He's an administrative guy.
Yeah.
Military administrative
guy. Is he under Meade?
Thomas?
Yeah.
No.
So he's
big. He's Army, where Meade is in charge of this Army.
Yes.
Thomas is all Union armies. He's the Adjutant General of the United States Armies.
So he's
Meade is
like...
Yeah. He's working under...
He's the go-between between Halleck and all the armies Halleck's in charge of.
Yeah. All these orders I read from Halleck to Meade, they were probably written by, you know, Halleck tells them, but and Halleck might look at it and say, yeah, this is what I meant, and prove it. But
Harry Evans says, who is the most underrated staff officer in the Army of the Potomac?
Mike?
Steve.
I don't know.
The staff officer.
Lieutenant Steve.
I don't know. I really don't know. I haven't. I don't have an answer.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not. It's okay in your defense because this isn't a.
That's good.
A show about staff officers.
Yeah, that's good.
So it's okay. He was just trying to test you there, but he has other ones. With McClellan's reluctance to attack or his retreat, is that from fear or inexperience? Oh, this is the one that was not about this.
McClellan.
Yeah.
McClellan wants everything just right. McClellan is great at building an army, getting it ready, but when it comes to fighting the army, he left a little bit to be desired. And Meade sort of doesn't completely fall into that mode, but he... I
was going to say earlier, you're talking about how the soldiers love Meade for one of those reasons, because he's not throwing them into the meat grinder. Do you see a comparison there with how they see Meade and how they loved McClellan?
You know, it takes them a while to warm up to Meade because, you know, he's put in charge of them on the fly. And so they have this victory at Gettysburg, but they still don't really know him. And so he's not part of the building up of the army like McClellan was, you know.
Right.
So
he was just one piece of the army.
Yeah, he's not getting that adulation. However, when Meade rides across the Rappahannock on November 8th at Kelly's Ford, it said that that's the first time that the soldiers stop and cheer him like they would have done to McClellan. It takes that long, finally. And, you know, again, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, they do show an appreciation that Meade maneuvers in their mind back towards Manassas when Lee's trying to outmaneuver them out to the west, and he doesn't fall into any foolish traps.
Yeah.
And he doesn't waste their lives like that. So
George Meade, Pennsylvania man. He would be cautious, I think. I don't know if that's the rest of the line. Glenn M. says, I'd love to hear what Lewis thinks on lessons learned in command from Gettysburg. Meade had to make unorthodox changes by appointing Hancock over Howard. We see politics get involved with Sickles. Slocum seems curious as he was slow to get there on day one, possibly not wanting responsibility for a mess, then assumed command of the right wing when that wasn't the case. Also, Hunt and Hancock got in a pissing match on who controls the artillery and how it would be used. Hazard on the third day was getting conflicting orders to shoot was getting conflicting orders to shoot or reserve ammo. In other words, Hancock was saying shoot, Hunt was saying reserve ammo. Conserve ammo. That was based on command structure. So there's no question, I guess, there. There is no question mark, I don't see. So he just wants to know what you think the lessons are that Meade got from his experience at Gettysburg.
Well, again, he's put in charge on the fly. He knows Reynolds, so he has no problems putting him in charge of a wing. He's familiar with Reynolds. And he's familiar with all these guys. He was a corps commander. I think, you know, Howard has a bad reputation, whether it's deserved or not, because of Chancellorsville. Meade knows Hancock, and he's talking to Hancock face to face, so he can tell him, this is what I need from you. Go do it. Lincoln has given him the authority to do what he wants with whoever he wants, either replace or put in charge anybody, regardless of rank. So I think Gettysburg, Meade does well with all the leadership challenges, to include the biggest challenge, of course, is Sickles. Sickles doesn't like Meade. Meade doesn't like Sickles.
Right.
So, and both bear responsibility for what happens. Meade could have, at some point during the day, come out and there's enough time to come speak to Sickles. This is what I need you to do. Sickles has a problem. This is why I don't want to do it. There's a problem with this line, and there is a problem with the line as construed by Meade. But I think he does well. He's very flexible. When he realizes there's no pulling Sickles back because time won't allow it, he immediately puts the 5th Corps as the reserve and utilizes that reserve. And they go to where they're supposed to or where they're most needed. I think he has a lot of help with people like Warren and then fighters like Hancock that, they save the day. So I don't know if any of that makes sense or answers the question, but he is very flexible with his leaders. He is given broad discretion to do what he wants. He exercises that discretion. And when he exercises it, I think he exercises it well.
Before we go, Lewis, you do have a fan club.
All
Rich
right.
Snyder says, Lewis does a great job. Don't sell yourself short. Mike, 6 Questions Lens says, Lewis is awesome. He is so good at telling the story. And Ralph Siegel says the Associated Press dates back to 1848. He was in the press, so he would probably know that off the top of his head there. And he also says, fascinating stuff. Can't do better than Doug Dowds.
You know what? I've told Ralph this. I told people at work the story of Doug Dowds. And I go
tell the audience
So I'm at a Christmas party 2 or 3 years ago with Addressing Gettysburg fans over at the Farnsworth house, sitting there minding my business, chit-chatting away, and here comes Ralph. And he looks at me and says, hey, Doug, thanks for helping me with this. He actually doesn't call me Doug at that point. He says, hey, thanks for helping me with this tour stuff. Right. And I was like, I don't think I helped you with it, but yeah. So he said, yeah, thanks, man, you're helping me. I said, I don't think you think I'm who you think I am. He says, you're Doug? No, I'm Lewis. We both got bald heads. Mine's by choice. I don't know about Doug.
Yeah.
But ever since then, he sees me and calls me Doug. And I've told him and other people, I was on a tour this previous summer, and Ralph's down there by the North Carolina monument with the cannon right there by the wall. And we're pulling up. I said, watch when I get out. This fella's going to call me Doug. We get out of the car. He says, how you doing, Doug? I said, told you. So, he keeps calling me Doug. We go to this thing with Dr. Reardon a couple weeks ago, and he calls me Doug, and I think Jim Hessler's in. He's like, why is he calling you Doug? I tell him the story. And so Jim Hessler calls me Doug. He called me Colonel Dowds the other week. But I go to work, and I tell these people, they ask me, how's it going with Gettysburg? And I say, yeah, and I tell them this story. This guy calls me Doug. And so one day I'm sitting there at my desk, and somebody walks by, and I have a name tag on the side of the partition. And he stops, and he looks, and he's like, who's Doug? Somebody at work has changed my name tag to say Doug and put the little symbol. It looks real. Put the symbol on there. It's on it.
Right.
Oh, God.
Oh, that's funny.
So, yeah. Hey, I'm glad Rich Snyder's listening. I meant to email him about Rich Dower. He'll know who Rich Dower is.
Sure,
it was sad to hear that story because I grew up with. Actually, I was early adult when Rich Dower was playing for the Orioles. So,
of course.
And thanks, Mike Lentz. How's Mike Lentz doing with the guide stuff?
Well, he passed tier 2, so on to tier 3.
Very good.
He'll be doing it in September.
That's a good time to do it. Gives you plenty of time.
I think so.
Think of a theme.
Yeah.
Got to have a theme.
Yeah. And
one of your other listeners contacted me after I did the episode about tips, and I gave him some tips, further on tips for the test. And
he
then
passed?
He contacted me for tips on tier 2.
Nice.
He passed that too. And he's doing the fall, I think, seminar too.
Very nice.
Dan, Butterfield.
Say my name. You're goddamn right.
All right.
I love this show. That's so fun.
Mikey, thank you very much for your help in the back there.
Matt, Doug, it was enjoyable.
Thanks, Ralph.
Say my name.
Doug Dowds.
You're goddamn right.
What I'm curious, Does Doug Dowd know any of this goes on?
Oh, he does now.
I never see him. I see his house and say, yeah, some crayon-eating Marine colonel lives there. When I go by with people, I wish I don't try to be envious, but I'm envious of that.
Well, I don't know if he knows that story, but I'll tell you what.
It'll get to him.
He knows it after watching this.
Yeah.
So he'll know now that I think he does. I have a feeling that I was part of a conversation that acknowledged that he is aware of it.
So I never talked to him. I don't know if I've ever met him.
You guys do, I wouldn't say you're doppelgangers, but you look like you could be related.
I just want everybody to know, except for the spot on the back of my head, this is all voluntary.
Yeah, you shave your head.
Every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a week and a half now because of Iraq. When I went to Iraq in 2008.
Got in the habit.
And I came back and I was like, oh, I hate hair. When it grows, I can feel it. It bugs me.
Yeah. Yes, I know what you mean. I let my winter growth go out and it was getting thick around the sides, certainly not on top. And I was like, I don't miss this at all. Like, this is, it's kind of weird. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much
the things we
for watching. Thank you, patrons, for sending in your questions. And we will talk to you next time.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Addressing Gettysburg's Ask a Gettysburg Guide is hosted by Matt Callery with Mikey B. Bariski, and Courtney Micker. Produced by Matt Callery and Courtney Micker. Guides appear gratis, but they would love for you to hire them for a tour on your next visit to the battlefield. To be put in touch with one, send an email to matt@addressinggettysburg.com. Thanks for watching.
Our hearts so stout have got us fame, for soon 'tis known from whence we came. Wherever we go, they tread the name of Gary Owen in glory. Instead of follow, drink down ale and pay the reckoning on the nail. No man forget shall go to jail from Gary Owen in glory. Instead of follow, drink down ale and pay the reckoning on the nail. No man forget shall go to jail from Gary Owen in glory.
Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, we have a lot more content for you over at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg. Also, you can make a tax-deductible donation to help support more videos like this at dhpioneers.com.